While California, on one hand, is getting ravaged and severely burnt by forest fires or wildfires, several other states across the US have been blanketed under thick cover of snow, suffering from bone chilling temperatures, and some people have also lost their lives. So, is this just a normal course of events in the climatic history of the US? Or is something larger going on? Like always, do we attribute this catastrophe, this calamity to climate change as well? We have to analyze the same in this lecture. So, first of all, let us locate which region we are studying. So, we travel across the Pacific western coast of United States. So, here is the state of California. This is Los Angeles. Currently, fires are raging, major fires are raging on the western, around, in and around Los Angeles, western and eastern parts across some of the hills. This is surrounded by hills. We are going to study the topography, the terrain surrounding this region because that is going to serve as a precursor to understanding what environmental factors have led to such disaster. And after we complete that, we are going to proceed to the other end of the spectrum, that is the winter storms or snowstorms. So here, like I said, this is Los Angeles. So Los Angeles on the western, this California on the western coast of the United States. So this has been the fires, various fires have been named depending upon the localities in and around Los Angeles. So Palisades Fire, Eaton Fire, Horst Fire, Woodley Fire, Sunset Fire. So these are the current important wildfires or forest fires which are raging. Okay. Now this I was talking about the topography terrain. So you can see here. So you can see here that this region. So this is California. Okay, so this region is encompassed or surrounded by two major ranges. One is the Rocky Mountain ranges. One is the Rocky Mountain ranges and one is the Sierra Nevada. These are very important. So normally around about this time, what happens is that there are warm winds, warm local winds which blow in this region. They are known as the Santa Ana winds, which blow normally from October to January. Now, an interesting fact, physics. So in winters, obviously land is cooler as compared to the snow. This region, this region in the middle of these two important ranges, the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevada, this is a low-lying basin, low-lying region also known as the Great Basin. Okay. So because of the cold temperatures, this is a high pressure region. On the other hand, if we consider the coastal areas, the Pacific Ocean or the western coast of United States or the eastern Pacific Ocean, then this is low pressure. And basic knowledge we studied in school that winds move from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. So winds are moving. Now, if I further demonstrate, if this is a mountain, just consider this the Sierra Nevada range. So the winds, they are starting from this region. They're blowing from high pressure to low pressure. They climb on this mountain and then they descend. While descending, what happens is they get compressed under the influence of gravity and the overlying air parcel. So what happens if suppose if the air parcel initially at the top of the mountain, this is the air parcel, if we draw a cuboid. So as it descends down the other side of the mountain towards the low pressure coast region, the Californian coast, so they get heated up, condensed, and under the influence of gravity, they acquire great speed also. And as a result, these molecules of the air they get closer together by compression, they collide, they gain kinetic energy, and they produce heat. So it is compressed, the air is compressed, warmed, And this is then this area. This is the region where the wildfires, it is affected by the wildfires or the forest fires, right? Now, some other aspects. So, one is the Santa Ana winds. Fine. Other is, other major factor is that normally what in one of the previous lectures on forest fires, you can have a look at it. Have explained wildfires in a detailed explanation, so I'll just repeat some of the causes of the wildfires. First of all, in US or all over the world, majority of the wildfires, forest fires are human induced, human caused. Okay. So in US, 85% are induced by humans. Okay. Now for a fire to burn, we go to some chemistry. What we need is we need fuel, we need the temperatures or ignition, and we require oxygen for combustion. So fuel is there in the form of vegetation. So this is a vegetation rich area. There is no scarcity or paucity of vegetation. Oxygen we always have, and temperatures are suitable for igniting the wildfire. There is less moisture, and just a trigger or a flame is required. That can normally it is attributed to the power cables, the loose power cables. Sometimes lightning strike can trigger a wildfire or forest fire. A simple matchstick can, or cigarette unextinguished cigarette can cause a ignite a wildfire. Camping or hiking popular in these western advanced nations, it is popular. So here now what is happening is, the point to wonder is, this is the winter season. So why wildfires are still occurring? You might be surprised to know that Siberian forest also, Siberia, a very frigid region in the northern part of Russia, it also suffers from wildfires. So the problem is not the winters. If dry vegetation, see, to extinguish a fire, what we require is H2O. So this over the past 10 to 20 years, this region has suffered from rapid warming. And like for example, in 2020 to 23, this region received sufficient rainfall. But this year, the past year, from 2024 winters, from October to this, the time till now, it has been more or less dry. So the humidity is as low to the extent of 10 to 20%. So it is dry, and dry vegetation is very essential or a good acquaintance to ignite and sustain a wildfire. Okay, so dry vegetation is more important as compared to the temperatures, the overall atmospheric temperatures. And once that dry vegetation is ignited, then it can sustain itself because it will further across. See, warm winds are blowing, the arid regions are there, there is sufficient vegetation, and I discussed in 2020 to 23 sufficient rainfall took place. So even greater vegetation, it sprouted, it flourished, and trigger is there. High speed warm winds are there to sustain, and just one trigger, one matchstick, or one unburned cigarette, or power cables lightning strike has ignited the fires, although the causes are still being researched. And so the wildfires have been raging exponentially. A lot of homes, acres, thousands of acres of lands have been destroyed. Homes have to be evacuated. Even celebrities like Paris Hilton, the properties have been destroyed. And now the main, so this is normally from the peak, although the peak of the wildfire season is August, July. That has also shifted because of climate change. Like in our country, in India, the forest regions, like in Uttarakhand, like in Himachal Pradesh, they also suffer from wildfires during the season from April to June. Again, the factors are same. Most of the wildfires, over 90%, they are ignited by human induced negligence or accident. Sometimes intentional wildfires to clear the grasses, they are also done. So a cigarette BD can ignite a wildfire. The important thing is the season is dry, plenty of vegetation is there, oxygen is there as well. And once a wildfire is ignited, It just needs vegetation to continue to sustain and cause mass devastation and mayhem. Okay. So we were talking about climate change. So we often talk about this term, our favorite term, global warming. So obviously, the overall temperatures of the Earth are increasing. 2024 has turned out to be the warmest year on record, and for the first time, the 1.5 degrees Celsius has been breached throughout several months. Okay, so the conditions, the future is looking quite bleak. So all these conditions, the warming. So even if winters are there, so the atmospheric temperatures overall, the average temperatures have increased, and further they have fueled the sustaining and the propagation of the wildfires. So there was news that the firefighters have run out of water also. So this wildfires, it is a common phenomena in the California region, but due to climate change, due to urbanization, haphazard urbanization, due to conflicts between nature and human, these have become very devastating. Now, on the other hand, the next spectrum is the snowstorm or the winter storm, which has caused severe blizzards, blankets of snow. It has displaced the normal lifestyle. So you can see this region, while it is dealing with the wildfires on one hand, this region has been under the blanket of snow, under the wrath of the severe snowstorm. So a lot of states such as Kansas, such as Missouri, Missouri, okay, such as this Arkansas, such as this Kentucky, this Virginia and West Virginia, then there is Maryland. Okay, all these states have already declared emergencies as well. Fine. So now let us understand what is the reason. Obviously, it is a winter, but can you see this shape? It is very interesting. So we'll go. In one of my previous lectures, I had discussed this concept of polar vortex. So what is a polar vortex? So a polar vortex is a large region of low pressure cold air which exists in normally the stratosphere, that is 15 kilometers to 50 kilometers above the Earth's surface and around both the poles, the North Pole and the South Pole. Fine. So for illustration purposes, so this is the polar vortex. So it is revolving or rotating around the poles. Okay, both. So there are two types, the stratospheric and the tropospheric. Troposphere is the where the major weather phenomena takes place. So in common nomenclature, normally in the news, we discuss about the stratospheric polar vortex. Now, what happens is if somehow the reason occurs due to some reason or the other, we'll discuss, very interesting, it gets disrupted. So, what happens is this this can happen if these kinks, instead of going round in a circle or in a proper, when it is strong, it develops these curves. So you can see that this region is cold air. So how far south it is going. And in response, this hot air is entering here. So this is the major reason right now for the winter storm in the US. A large mass of cold air has been displaced from the polar vortex due to its disruption and instability and is causing. Now, if you see this, you can see this shape. So similar. So this region is the high pressure region and the low pressure vortex, the low pressure cold air has come here. Now again, the important. This also happens sometimes, but again, has climate change brought about a mayhem or major disruption? And the answer is yes. And we, again, you will ask me if you have been paying attention that the overall, I just talked about that temperature records have been broken recently, and global warming, the entire earth is warming. But out of that, the Arctic region, the Arctic and the Antarctic region, those of the perennial, those which have the perennial ice, they are getting warmed at a higher, at a much higher rate. So, example, if the whole earth is getting warmed by a temperature of suppose zero point 0.8 degrees Celsius, Arctic is getting warmed by a temperature of 2.1. I've already discussed a lot of reasons. I'll not go into that. Okay. So what is happening due to the abnormal warming of the Arctic? It says as compared to the whole earth, this stable vortex which we are talking about, this warming has become one of the reasons for its disruptions. Now, some of the geographical terms, no need to worry. So, what happens is there in one of my lectures, I discussed the concept of jet streams. So, jet streams essentially they are narrow, meandering, swift bands of wind upper level which are embedded in the upper level or upper troposphere, upper level westerlies. All you have to remember is that they revolve around the earth from west to east. Now, this jet stream sort of holds the stratospheric polar vortex. But because of the disruption caused in the polar vortex due to global warming and climate changes, this jet stream has got disrupted and it has developed. So it has jet streams if they encounter high pressure areas in the middle. So they take a curved path, they meander. And what we discussed, we have cold air because if air always will fill the empty space. If this is a container and I have a closed container, if I open this container, so obviously the air will flow out, whether it be warm or whether cold. So in this region we have cold air. Earlier when the jet stream was like this, then the cold air was confined to this region. But now, due to disruption in the polar vortex, which is worsened or exacerbated by climate change and global warming, this has further moved south. And that is why, of course, it has not encompassed the entire region. This California region is still bearing the brunt of the wildfires, but all other regions like Kansas, Arkansas, Minnesota, Maryland, Virginia, Virginia, they are under severe snowstorm conditions. Okay, so this is what we have to discuss. This was what was on the plate for today. So now, the future always we have COPs, conference of parties. What I would like to conclude is already there have been very lot of initiatives, nationally determined contributions, financing green technologies, but still, if adequate measures are not taken, if they are not expedited, it is anticipated or it is expected by the scientists that by the end of the century, forget 1.5 degrees Celsius, the from the pre-industrial levels by if we keep on going down the same path, wayward path, then the temperatures will rise as compared to the pre-industrial levels by a massive 3 degrees Celsius. So we have to look forward to take care and nurture our future generation and the health of our planet Earth. So with that we conclude. Jai Hind.